Hello, this is Zach, and this is going to be a follow-up to the previous video where I was creating and working with files. In that previous video, went through how to create a physical file, a logical file, and then also using SQL to create a table and an index. So in this video, I wanted to fill that physical file with actual data and then create a program that's going to read that data and then write it to another file. So to do that, I actually want to use Visual Studio Code. And I'm going to fill our physical file using the DB2 extension here. And I can open SQL document. And so in here, I'm going to actually write the SQL um, to fill our physical file. And that would be, this is the same as using Start SQL and green screen, but for this video, I'm just going to use Visual Studio Code. So what I want to do is write an insert into our statement into our file. So I'm going to start by saying insert into, and then write our file, which was libpf. And you can see that there's other things coming up that we could choose as options, but all I need is this. And then I'm going to start writing the fields of our physical file. So I'm going to write book title, and it's going to come up with the fields, and I can just press tab to enter them. And then I'll do author's last name, author's first name, oops, author's middle initial, and then I'll do the category number. This was our keyed value, um, the published date, and then we had page number. Once we set that, we can write the values. And so I'm just gonna write some random values. So for our first, and it's important to remember the types of our fields here because we have the types are going to have to match in our values. So our book title is a character. So I'm just going to say book um, title one. And then for the last name, I'll just use my name. And then separating all these by commas, by the way. And then I'll use my first name. And then I'm just going to write a blank for the middle initial. And for the category number, this is our keyed value, so this is going to have to be unique for every record. So I'm just going to start with 1 and then increment that as I add more books. And this is going to be our date, so it's going to look, it's going to start with the year. So I'll just do the year, and then I'll say um, something like the day, the month, and then today's date is the 12th. So after this, we have our page number. So this is just going to be an amount of pages. I'll just say it's 100 pages. And I'm using a semicolon, and this is going to say that it's the end of our SQL statement, and it won't run any other lines of SQL after that. So after I do that, I'm going to press Control and R. Oh wait, actually, I missed a really important um, step. We have to qualify our file name here. So I need to put my library in here first, and then I can put a slash. So this is going to qualify our file. So after I do that, um, it says that one row was affected. And then to test this, I can just write a select statement under this, select all from, and then I'll type our library and our file, put a semicolon, and then we can see that we just entered a record into here. So I'm going to keep going with this, and I'm going to make a couple more records. I'll just change a couple aspects of it. I want this to be 2, or I guess I'll just increment it by 1, 2. And then I can just press enter. Oh, duplicate key value. So that's actually important. So I forgot to increment our keyed value. So I tried to write another record that had the same value in the category number, which is not allowed since this is our keyed value. It has to be unique. So I'm going to change that to 2, and then it's going to let us write that record. Now we see there's two. So I'm just going to write one more here, change this to 3, and then we'll change this to 3 as well. And then I'll write that record. And now I'm going to change the name to be something like Barry. And then I'll make the first name Bob. And then I'll make this have the initial of B. And then I'll change this back to 1. And I'll just change this to 1 and this to 1. And then I'll enter that record. Oh, duplicate key value, forgot to do it again. So I'll change that to 4. And then I'll change this. This time I'll remember to change everything. Just changing everything to make the records different. This would be, I could make a program to do this, but just showing how to quickly do this. All right, and then I'm going to write one last record. And I'm going to change the middle initial to A, and this is going to show how the logical file will sort by name here. I'll just say this is 1,000, and then there. So there, if we select all from this table, we can see all of our records that we just wrote down here. The ones from me, and then the ones from Barry Bob, or Bob Barry, and then the ones with the different middle initial. And we can see in this physical file, we're actually reading these, and we're reading them in the order in which they were written to the file. So we can see like 1, 2, the first ones we did 1, 2, 3. The second round of records was 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3. So we can see that it's being ordered that way. So now that we have records in our file, we can actually create our program. So I'll click back on the IBM I icon, and I'll bring up green screen. So pressing F6. So this is just going to be a program. I'm going to name it read file. It's going to be RPGLE program, and I'm just going to say this is a program that reads files. I guess it's going to read and write to a file. Oh well, I'll just leave it as that, even though it's not very accurate in the description. And then I'm just going to press enter and file to leave this because I'm going to open it in VS Code. So what I'll do is, now that I just created that, I'm going to refresh, and we're going to see it pop up in our RPGLE source file. And so I can click on that, and we'll see this new program. So I'm going to start by specifying that this is going to be a fully free RPG program, so free. And so I'm going to start by declaring our files. So first I'm going to declare the physical file, and I'm going to say it's a disk and it is keyed, and I'm also going to declare our logical file, LF, and it also is a disk, disk that is keyed. So, and now, since we have both of these files that have both the same field names, we need to use the prefix keyword. So I'm going to say prefix, and so the prefix is going to be used, the prefix keyword is basically going to be used to partially rename the fields of our externally described files. So I'm just going to say the prefix for the physical file is PF, and then that dash. And so all the fields in this program are going to be lead with this PF and then this dash here, and it's going to indicate that these are from the physical file. And I'm going to do the same thing with our logical file, but I'll just change it to say an F, or I mean L, instead of a P. So it's going to be prefix LF. And then for our logical file, we also need to rename our record format because these are both using the same record format. So I'm going to rename the record format, and our record format was LIB rec. And so I'll just rename it to LIB rec 2. And so now we've renamed our record format for our logical file. And so once we've done that, we also need a file that we're going to write to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come and right click the physical file and I'm going to copy it. And then I'm going to specify the name that I want for it. I'll just say it's the result. Oops, the result. It's creating that. You see that just got created. And I'm going to change the record format to be result rec. And so I'll save that. And once it saves, I can come over to this icon in the top right and create the physical file. And I'll press enter, and we see in the bottom right corner that we just created that physical file successfully. And so now we can declare it. Declare our file, and it was result. And it's a disk that is. And so for this, we're going to actually specify the usage. And so the usage keyword is going to be used to specify how the program can use the file. Since this is our result file, it's going to be used to write files to. So we want to specify this is going to be used for output. And so if you don't specify the usage, it's going to default based on the device type. So if it's a disk, it's going to, if it's a disk, it's going to default to an input usage. If it's a printer, it's going to default to output. And then a workstation is going to default to input and output. So our physical file up here is defaulting to an input usage. And if I didn't specify the usage here, that would be the same for our result, and we wouldn't be able to write to it. So now that we have that, we are going to specify that this is keyed, and we're going to use a prefix for this as well. And the prefix can just be RE. So there is all of our file declarations. And now we want to use the set LL, and that is going to be used to set our position in our file. We're going to set the lower limit to be low-val. And so this is going to basically set the position in our file to the very first record so that we can start by reading the first record in our file. And I'll specify the file as libpf, our physical file. And then I'm also going to be doing a priming read of our libpf. And then the next thing I'm going to do is create a loop to iterate through all the records in our file. So I'm going to just write a comment that says read records from the file. And I'm going to also write a comment here that says set at first position, just to describe what these lines of codes are doing. So I'm going to use a do while loop. So this is going to iterate while a certain condition is true, and we want to iterate while we haven't reached the end of our file. So we're going to use something, a built-in function, EOF, while we haven't reached the end of file. So this is going to be used to determine if we've reached the end of our file, and I'm going to specify libpf. But we want to make sure that we are doing this while we have not read the end of our file. So this is negating the result of our built-in function here. So then I'm going to end do. This is ending our loop, and I'm just going to do that so I don't forget to do it later. And now we can actually write what is going to loop. And so I'm just going to basically write I'm just going to set all of the fields in our result equal to our physical file that we're reading from. So I'm going to say re underscore, and then we can see that all the fields are being suggested here. So I'm just gonna, you can just click on them, but I'm just gonna do it in the same order since that's kind of what makes sense. And then I'm gonna say pf book. So I'm just gonna type all the fields here. then once we've done all of these, this is going to set all of our values from the file we're reading to our result file. Going to finish this, and there we go. Those are all the fields. And then once we're done setting our values here, we are going to write to the file. And so we do that just by saying write, and then we write to the record format, which was, I think it was just result. And yeah, it's giving me the option here to fill it in, result rec. So there we go. And the next thing we want to do is read a new record from our physical file. So I'm just going to read next record, and then I'm going to do another read. So I'm just going to copy it. There we go. And then the last thing we want to do is end our program. So we're going to turn on our last record indicator. Equals on. And so what that is going to do is that it's going to signal to the computer to close the files, which will free the memory associated with the program. So if the last record indicator is not on when the program ends, it's going to continue to tie up some of the system's resources even though the program isn't running anymore. So it's good practice to close the files in a program once they're done being used, and this is going to ensure data integrity and efficient resource management. So we turn on last record indicator to close those files, and then we will just use return. And then that's the end of our program. And so to compile this, I first save. And then we can do create bound RPG program. Click on that. And then in the bottom right, we see that we successfully created that. And then some things are getting highlighted, but we can see that there is 0 severity, so that's no problem. So I think we should be all set to call this. And so what I'll do is bring up green screen. And I can go into here and I'll just call this. So I guess first what I can do is show that. So I can do a run query on this results file. Oh, I didn't type this right. Run query on this result file, and we can see that it's empty. So after I run the program, this is going to get filled. So I'm going to call it, and then if I prompt that back up, we've filled our file. And so we see that it's getting written in here the same way that we entered it into the physical file. So yeah, and then if we press Shift and F8, then we can shift through, and we can like shift over and see the rest of our records. And we can also do that in VS Code. If I come over here and do select all from CHV1 volt, we can see everything in there, in the bottom here. So what I want to do now is clear that PFM. I'm going to clear our physical file. I'm going to prompt this and say result, and then type in our library. So I just cleared it. So if I do a run query on here, it's going to be empty again. And that's because I want to fill it with our logical file and show the difference. So if I go back into here and jump into our program, another thing you can do in VS Code is you can drag this over and split the screen so you can see things, see two things at once. So what I want to do now is instead of reading from our physical file, I actually want to read from our logical file. So what I can do is if I highlight this and do Control F, it's going to show us everywhere that has our physical file. And I'm going to want to change I was going to try to do replace, but there's other places that do it. So I'm just going to do it manually. So I'm just going to change where we read from the file and where we check if it's the end of the file, and then if we where we do that. And I also want to change this. So what I'm going to do is if I line all these up, I can do it all at once. So if you press Control Alt and then the down arrow, you can actually move your cursor to be over multiple lines. And then I can just delete all these at once and then type in L. And then I just change the prefix. So now it's looking at the fields in our logical file. So now we just changed everything. So now we're using the logical file rather than the physical file. And so we're going to read our records in a different order. So I'm going to compile this since we made those changes. And now, if I call our program, call, and I'm going to jump back over to VS Code. And if I do, and remember, this was how our file was looking before. I'll take a quick screenshot of it just to compare it after we do this. Here we go. And now, if I do a select all again in a result, it's going to be in a different order. So you can see the before and after. So on the bottom here, we see that it's getting sorted by first, last name. It's getting sorted by last name, first name, and then author's middle initial. So we see that this is our first record, and then the other Bob Berry is getting um, read next. And then since my last name starts with a V and then first name starts with a Z, it's getting read. It's getting put at the bottom. So this is kind of the difference of how you can read a physical file and a logical file, and how those records can get sorted. So I think that's going to be all that I wanted to cover in this video. So yeah.